So, Pastor Dan coming to you from the basement today because it's so windy outside. Otherwise, I was like, man, this is a beautiful day. But I wanted to talk to you today about just taking care of the people around us. Taking care of our children, of our maybe our parents, of our siblings, of our spouses, of our neighbors. How do we take good care of the people that God has put around us to care for? And so I think a big part of that is asking the right questions. And I know, like, a lot of times we jump into a conversation, it's just, hey, how you doing? And everybody kind of looks at each other and goes, yeah, I'm good, I'm okay, I'm fine, yeah, or yeah, things are pretty good, thanks for asking. And we tend to stay really surfacey. And it's one thing when that's our neighbor that we have a real surfacey conversation with, but it's another thing when, as family members or as children or parents or husband and wife, we want to have deeper conversations than that. And so I think a lot of it comes down to asking the right questions and asking the right questions in the right way, because we can ask questions in absolutely the wrong way. Like when you start off with, what's wrong with you? Probably not going to go real well. But if we say, hey, is there something bothering you? Much better question, right? And so asking good questions and really digging in a little bit with people is really, really important. And I noticed as Jesus goes through ministry, Jesus is somebody who actually asks a ton of questions. And maybe you've noticed that, or maybe you haven't, but he does. I mean, even like with the woman who was at the tomb, what's troubling you? Asking the disciples questions. What are people saying, and what are you thinking, and what were you just talking about? Jesus really tries to dig in with people by asking good questions. He asks it of the crowds. He asks it of people he heals. He asks it of the Pharisees. He asks of his disciples. He asks good questions. So I was trying to think of what are some good questions. I mean, obviously there's an art to just being able to let a conversation unfold and asking good questions in the midst of that. And one that I've been trying to implement more and more, and I learned from a ministry coach that I work with, is when somebody makes a statement, to be able to follow that up with, what is it about that? And then for their demeanor. So like, what is it about that makes you so excited? What is it that makes it up? What is it about that makes you so sad? What is it about that makes this so frustrating? And to be able to probe in a little bit more in those areas. So I want to challenge you to do that. A lot of times I think what happens is we hear someone who's frustrated, and instead of asking the question, we start to make the statements like, well, not everything is so bad. We start to jump in and push an agenda like, well, you need to be more positive. And that really doesn't help the other person. So to follow up and ask better questions is really important. So some great ways to get started in that is like, for example, in the midst of this pandemic, to be able to ask questions like, what's been your greatest challenge in all of this? Or what's been your greatest challenge today? You could come home from a family gathering, like a reunion, and say, hey, what was the greatest challenge in that today? Or to be able to say, hey, what did you see God doing today? Or where did you see God show up today is another great question. Maybe asking, what's been disappointing about this and why? And then not to follow it up with, well, you shouldn't be so disappointed. Why are you so like expectant? Like there's an art to this. So, and then another good one would be like, what's been surprisingly good out of a particular situation? Sometimes things really surprise us and go much better than we thought. So just some ideas on how to care for the people around you. And I want to challenge you to keep asking good questions. And we'll see you again soon. God bless.